So I'm going to start with an overview of what iBOSS is and where iBOSS came from and where we see it fitting into the overall proposition for the IPEX. So iBOSS stands for the Interactive Business Operations Software Suite and was developed by Capstan and a third-party developer to provide a complete management suite for call logging, for presence, for phone and extension management, and also call recording. And it was developed between Capstan and a third-party developer. So iBOSS contains three key parts: phone monitor, phone manager, and call management. And I'm going to run through all of those parts today, and they do different things in terms of real-time statistics, extension management, and historical reporting. But it's important now to move on to the editions of iBOSS, because there's four editions that we offer. We offer a light, a standard, an executive, and a business manager. And on screen there you can see some of the different features that are available as each of the editions. The light edition is included free of charge for every IPEX that is sold, and is also compatible with IPEX on version 5.5 software that you've sold recently as well. And the light edition really provides some lightweight user information for today. So, for instance, in the light edition, there's some widgets where you can get some live reporting about what's going on today. We've also got the phone monitor application, which is almost like an on-screen BLF with some additional features on top of that in terms of what it can do in terms of reporting on ACD groups. And we also include the phone manager, which is effectively a window into your station management. And now the light edition, as I've said, is free of charge for all users and all extensions on an IPEX. There's absolutely no charge for that at all. And we also offer for 60 days from the point of install the full Business Manager edition. So customers can get used to using some of the more advanced reporting elements of iBOSS and are more likely to upgrade to retain those features. The second edition is the standard edition, and this provides slightly more reporting on today. So you can actually start to run some PDF reports on what's gone on today, so some extension and some summary reporting. It's a very low-cost product. It's something that is slightly more than light, but is quite a way away from the executive edition. So in a situation where they just want a bit of reporting on today's activities that they can save as a PDF, the standard is a good stopgap between light and executive. Now the executive edition is where things really start to get interesting, because you start to have the ability to have fully real-time wallboards. You also get full historical reporting that you can export as Excel or CSV or web page files. You get scheduling of reports, you get some SLA analysis, DDI reports, and the executive edition is the first edition where you can also include one of our call recording options as well. The Business Manager edition builds upon the features from the executive edition, but includes some more contact center type features. So things like reporting on agent availability, being able to use some of the information to model what your call center or contact center might look like if certain parameters were changed. So the Business Manager edition is the full-blown version that includes all the features available with iBOSS, and again you can add on the call recording options. Now, as I've mentioned, we offer a free 60-day trial. So for 60 days, all users of the IPEX can use the executive edition, and after 60 days it automatically reverts to the light edition. You don't lose any of the data already collected when it downgrades, so if they do choose to upgrade in the future, then that information will be there. We also offer a demo edition, and the demo edition allows you to demonstrate iBOSS without having an IPEX there. So it uses dummy data, but it does it in a way that will actually show some real-time updates. So it's not just flat reporting. We can actually demonstrate some of the widgets and the wallboard functionality. And for a lot of the presentation today, I'm actually going to be using that demonstration edition to demonstrate a lot of the features of iBOSS. So it's a really good tool to have in your toolkit when you're quoting and pitching the iPEX, because it shows that you can demonstrate the product in an easy environment without having lots of equipment with you. Now, I'm going to move on to the iPEX configuration now. The iPEX configuration isn't overly difficult. There's only a few parameters to change, but over the last month we've found that most of the problems people encounter when installing iBOSS is that they haven't quite got the configuration of the iPEX correct. So some important things to note here: we've got IP port settings for the outputs, and I'm going to just jump into the installation guide now. So the installation guide includes a blow-by-blow requirement and step-by-step instructions of what you need to do to install iBOSS. And the first thing is the output port settings, so 6002, 6 and 9. You also need to turn on ACD Manager Print. Now this is in System Attributes 160 to 161, option 13. ACD Manager Print must be on. We also need to print the serial number, so this is in SMDR Attributes program 177, and that needs to be on also. ICM print, again in SMDR Attributes, needs to be on. Serial port selections, as I've shown you there, are in program 175, and they're admin data print, value of null and port 6002. Online SMDR again null, port 6006, and ACD package print null of 6009. Now iBOSS won't report on anything or won't function unless all of the information and the configuration of the iPEX is complete, because what we've developed is a special capture tool that takes straight SMDR, some ACD information and some real-time event information, which is also known as the application interface messaging or unified message format, and we've combined all of those outputs to give a master output, and the master output is what we need to actually do this reporting. Now somebody's asked, where do we get the manual? The answer is it's included on the iBOSS CD that is shipped with every iPEX currently, and it's also available as a download from the iBOSS website too. So really, in terms of the iPEX, that's pretty much it. The only other things that I would highlight are some of the other SMDR attributes. Usual things like you should print all calls, you should print long distance calls, standard SMDR settings for any call package. SMDR print should be enabled, not save, and then you're pretty much done. iBOSS, when it's installed and configured, actually generates an error log if it's getting data from the iPEX but it's not in the correct format. So when you phone into tech support, they'll be able to do a couple of quick checks just to make sure that the information that they're getting is correct. I'm now going to start with the server installation. This can take some time. I'm installing it today on a server. It's actually in the cloud. I use Amazon servers, and they're almost instant to turn on and very quick to turn off. So they're a nice, low cost and easy way of doing demonstrations, and also for testing your install skills on software packages, because in effect you're not working on your own server. If you make a mistake, you can just shut it down and start a new one up. I've got a 2008 server, fresh install, meets the minimum specifications of the iBOSS server, and I'll cover those off now. So we've got two different specifications. We've got one specification when you're not using call recording, and one specification when you are using call recording. The reason for this is that if you're using call recording, you need larger hard disk space. You also need either USB ports or PCIe half-length slots available for the hardware required for the call recording. If you're not doing call recording, then an XP Vista 7 Professional or a server platform, minimum of a gig of RAM and a 250 meg hard disk, free. We do recommend that you have more space available on the hard disk, especially because if it's a busy site, they're going to be collecting a lot of data, and you can imagine in 3-5 years that can get quite sizable in terms of the number of records held. Now, if you are using call recording, slightly higher specification in terms of the RAM, we'd recommend a terabyte hard disk, but that is down to you and your customer. I've had a question from Sean come in saying, will it work with Blade servers? And the answer is yes, as long as it meets the minimum specification. The only problem area you may come across is if you're using or you want to record SIP. Our SIP call recorder actually requires a spare PCIe slot. I've got the dimensions available. I think it's 18 centimeters long, 10 centimeters high. But at the end of the day, if the server meets the specification and has the available ports or slots, then sure, if it's a blade, a rack, or a tower, that's really your choice. Now, in terms of the call recording server, we recommend we need a spare USB port per recording device. So if you're recording two primary rates, so 230 channel ISDNs, you will need 2 USB ports. If you're recording 4 analog and 4 ISDN2, again you will need 2 spare USB ports. SIP recording is a PCIe board, and if you want to use more than 60 channels of ISDN or more than 2 different line types, that will also be supplied as a PCIe board. So for your run-of-the-mill normal customers where it's under 60 channels of recording, then you can specify either 1 spare USB port for analog or ISDN, or a spare PCIe slot for SIP, and that's fine. If it's above 60 channels, then generally we'd like to be involved in the configuration and the specification of that server. Okay, so I've got a server here. I've downloaded the iBOSS installation file. When you order iBOSS from us, if it's a paid edition or call recording, then we will ship a CD with the IPEX. At the moment, we're actually shipping one with every IPEX that's sold. We'll also email you a link to the latest download, should you want that, and it's also available for download from the website. So I've downloaded and unzipped the installation package, and I've now got some options. So the first thing to look at is the installer. iBOSS uses SQL Server Express as its database engine, and the longest part of the install is actually for the SQL Server, believe it or not, and then the iBOSS application files are fairly quick after that. So to begin installation, simply double-click the installer. We're then presented with 3 options. The options are server software installation for a licensed product, client software, again a licensed product, or installation of the demonstration software. So the CD that goes out with every IPEX gives you the option of which you want to install. So once you've installed it, it may be handy to carry one in your bag should somebody want a demonstration, and you can very quickly load the demo edition. iBOSS is a client-server relationship, so you have a central server, and you saw the specifications for that a second ago, and then the client machines that want to use the phone monitor application, the phone manager, or want to have access to running reports or viewing a dashboard is a client. Now, iBOSS comes as standard with 1 client license, so that would enable you to run reports on a single machine. Now, these are concurrent licenses, so you can have it installed on multiple machines, but if they want to run reports or have a wallboard on more than 1 machine, then there is a client license that would need to be installed into the license management screens, which we're going to touch on later. And they are chargeable, so extra clients above the standard 1 is a chargeable line item. So I'm now going to start a server software installation. The software will always dial back to our website if there's an internet connection, and we do recommend that you have an internet connection available on the server for the purposes of registration. Registration is very important, and I'll cover off why in a second, but the software will dial home and make sure that it's the latest version if there's a new version there. It's very much a standard Windows installation process. There's a lot of clicking of next, and the software does most of the installation on its own, and then you just do some configuration once it's all installed. So I'm going to leave that running just over there, and it's just extracting the installation files at the moment. It's then going to run through some SQL installation steps. As you can see now, it's starting to install the SQL Server. We use 2008 Release 2, so it's the latest stable and recommended version of SQL Server. It's the Express Edition. If you have a customer that wants to use an existing SQL Server on site, that is possible, but you will need to know things like the SA password and to have somebody on site that is capable of working with that SQL Server. Somebody's asked, can iBOSS be loaded on iMac? That's a good question. The answer is no, it's a Windows-only application. Having said that, I actually run a MacBook, but I'm running Windows on it. So when I'm working in the Mac environment, you can use something like Parallels, where you're able to virtualize Windows applications. So it won't run natively on Mac. It won't run and install on Mac server. But if you do have a business where some people are using Macs, often they will have kind of a boot camp partition where you can install Windows and run Windows apps. So it's possible, but it's a bit clunky. Okay, so while that's running away in the background there, I'm just going to move on to some of the other aspects of iBOSS which are very important. Firstly is customer registration. Now, customer registration is very important because it bonds that customer and that installation to you as a reseller. And for them to actually use the 60-day license, the demo edition, they will get nag screens coming up until they have registered the software. iBOSS allows a customer, once they've been using the Lite edition, to go online and upgrade their installation, which is a very light touch for them. They just effectively pay for it using a credit or debit card. If you have bonded the customer to you as a reseller at point of install, then you maintain the margin for that sale. We will pay you as the reseller at the end of the month for any of your customers that have done an upgrade online. Now, this isn't applicable if you are selling it up front. So if you sell the Business Manager Edition, then it would be sold in the normal way. Purchase order, we provide a license key, much like you're used to doing with IPEX licenses now. Just going to bring up the iBOSS registration process. So I'm going to look at new software registration, and this is where you need to go to complete the details about the customer. So the user login information is all of the details about the customer, so their first name, last name. Give them a username and an email, so their email goes in here. And you also create a password for them too. So the customer can fill that in if they want. In terms of company details, this is the name and address of the company that has bought iBOSS or has had the Lite version installed on their premises. The next section is reseller details. So this is you as an installer and your company. So the name of the company you work for. And this allows us to bond this iBOSS installation to you as a reseller. Now, the iBOSS software details, there's three different options here. The software reference number, this is a number that's actually generated from the software at point of install, and that's unique to that specific server, so I'll show you where to get that once iBOSS is installed. And if you've purchased an iBOSS edition from us pre-installation, you'll also be assigned an installation key. And this installation key tells us which version this customer has purchased. So some important details there. I'm just going to jump back to the server installation that I've got running here, and it's just completed the SQL Server installation. When I did the demonstration on this last week on the previous webinar, I used a lower powered machine and it took twice as long. So the length of install of SQL is directly related to the power and available memory of the machine. So we now get to the stage where we can install the iBOSS call management and recording server, and it's a case of choosing next. Read through fully the terms and conditions of the license agreement. Accept the terms if you accept them. Choose next. I'm just going to complete my name in here and choose install. And iBOSS will run through and install its program files. Again, it's very much a case of next and finish. And once that's completed, it will prompt you if you're using call recording. We're not in this case. If you are, you choose yes. You then plug in your call recording hardware and reboot the server. But I'm going to choose no in this instance. Couple of options here. Select a location, UK. iBOSS is compatible with other countries, and it's currently sold in Ireland and the US. So if you choose other, then it won't cost your call. So always choose the UK. And now you fill in the customer details. So this is the end user details. I'm just going to call them end user, and I'm going to put in fake address, put in a postcode. Now this is again important information because this will confirm back to the iBOSS website and bond the two together again. So I enter some details in there. Contact email is important. This will become the default email address for any reports and notifications if they don't change it. Reseller name, so dealer name. Dealer email again is important, and I'll show you why on the next screen. Okay, so we've got some alarm setup now. An alarm setup again is important for the install process. Basically, you put in the start time and the end time for the customer's site, and what this does is if the system either isn't connected to the IPEX properly or isn't recording call data, it will alarm and email you if you want, or the customer, to say that there's a problem with the system. So if you run through the installation, put your email address in here or your technical support desk's email in there. If this customer site has a problem or disconnects from the IPEX for any reason, you'll actually get an email notifying you. You can also set up some other notifications such as how many calls have occurred today, how many calls have been recorded if call recording is installed, and the percentage of recorded calls with no extension matching. And again, you can include the customer information in that notification email. So you can use this to proactively monitor what's going on with your customers' sites. One of the final steps is the email setup. So iBOSS has the ability to email out reports and call recordings and notifications, and for that you need access to an SMTP server. As you may have come across with the IPEX voicemail to email, if a customer doesn't have an on-site SMTP server, then you can actually opt to purchase one of our hosted packages and just choose test, and it was successful. So that tells me that the SMTP account is available and can be used. So if we click finish on that, it's now going to ask for the IP address of the switch. So in this instance, there is no IPEX in the Amazon cloud, and it asks you to restart. So I'm just going to restart that, and that will close off and shut my connection down. And I'll go in there just in a second when that's rebooted. Again, it's important to reboot the server. iBOSS uses some services on the server on the machine, and those services will start up on reboot. So again, it's important to go through that stage. I'm going to move on now to the recommended installation order, and this is the order in which we recommend that you configure iBOSS. There's a reason why we recommend this. It's so that you don't have to jump around between different screens. So to give an example, if you were to configure an extension before you'd configured departments, divisions or groups, then you could only complete certain parts of that extension screen. So that's our recommended order there. That brings us to the end of the server installation. I'm now going to move on to some of the features and actually a demonstration of the iBOSS software using the demo edition. So I'm just going to now start up some of the applications so you can get a flavour for what they do. First one I'm going to show you is the phone monitor application, and this application is a real-time busy lamp view. It's real-time presence, so it's included in all versions of iBOSS. It's one of the main features of the Lite edition, and is very useful for really anyone that wants some presence of users. It's especially useful for remote workers. So if you've got remote workers on remote IP phones, you can actually see if they're available or not. It effectively replaces DSS consoles on the desk, but it does slightly more. So I'm now going to show you the phone monitor application. I'll just minimize that there. So phone monitor, as you can see, gives you a visual representation of extensions on the system. If there's a name by that extension, it's possible to show the name, and it will also show the status of a user as well. So on the demo edition, in order for the data to start coming through, you actually need to run the call management application that I'll come to, and I've just started that up in the background, and you can see that the status of these extensions is now changing. So what you can do with the phone monitor, I've got it fairly large there, but you can resize it, and resizing it will always do a best effort fit on the screen. So it won't always display perfectly, especially if you make it really small or really narrow, but it will always do a best effort fit, and we've found that it's usually used in a kind of a bar at the top or at the side of a screen, and then it will adjust to fill that space. Now, some of the features of the phone monitor, obviously you've got changing colours of extensions. The colours indicate different states. So green is logged out of an ACD group, but is available. So in most installations, if you're not using ACD groups, users will be green when they're available for calls. Yellow indicates that an agent is logged into an ACD group and is available to take calls. Red indicates a busy state, so it might be ringing, it might be off hook, it might be dialing. So red indicates that user is doing something on their phone. And we've also got a grey state as well, which indicates that an extension is on DND. So if somebody DNDs or their extension, then it will show as grey on the display here. Got some options on the top right here. We've got a key, and this key gives you a colour code to what those states mean. We've actually updated this edition slightly for the current version, and instead of saying idle, it now says free. So there's a slight change there from the demo to the real world edition. Some basic settings for the phone monitor application. We've got 3 custom groups, and these groups allow you to specify which extensions you want to display on screen. So I've created 3 groups here: a tech group, an inbound group, and a my group 3, and I've assigned different extensions to those groups. It's very easy to add extensions. You simply choose the extension you want, and click the arrow to the right and it will add it to the assigned group. You can also shift click to select multiple options, or control click to select individual discrete options, or you can put them all across or take them all out. So it's fairly flexible in terms of how you can configure those groups and which extensions you want to view. Once you've configured your groups, to change groups you simply go down on the select group option. So I've got a tech support option there with 3 people in it. Again, this is scalable, so you can have this whatever size you want. I've actually seen this on customer sites where they've put this up on a big wallboard because they want to see at a glance what people are doing in another building they've got. I can also change there to the inbound group, and there's some more people, or my group 3, and we've got 6. As part of Phone Monitor, and this is a slight, I guess one of the main improvements over a standard DSS console on a phone where you can see different states, is the ability to click on an agent and actually see some information about them today. So I'm going to find one that's actually got some information on it, and if I look at all extensions and look at the switchboard, on the switchboard it will give me some information about that extension. So today the switchboard has made 12 calls, inbound and outbound and internal, of which 0 were incoming answered, 12 were unanswered, none are outgoing, none are internal, and there's no talk time. We can also add a picture here. To update a picture, simply click on it and it will bring you up with a dialog where you can browse for a picture, and I'll just grab so I'll grab Trevor there, and then that will put Trevor in the picture for the switchboard, and that runs throughout the software. So in some of the screens later on, you'll see that the picture is actually available in other places when it comes to some of the statistics. Okay, so I'm just going back into the server, and that's great. Okay, so the server's back there now. And before I go on to the other aspects of the application, we've looked at Phone Manager. Before I move on to call management, I can actually now show you some of the configuration options on the server for how to configure and set up iBOSS. So you'll have noticed that we've now got 2 applications on the desktop of the server. We've got the iBOSS application and call management. If you launch iBOSS, this opens up a dock. On here, because I'm remote desktoped in, the dock actually doesn't operate as you would expect it to, with a white background there. On a normal desktop, it appears as a transparent dock option. And then we've got 3 options: so Phone Manager, Phone Monitor, and Call Management. And you can launch the applications quickly from the dock. Alternatively, you can actually launch them from an icon down here and choose which option you want. All the configuration is done in the call management application. So I'm going to open that first and then run through the installation and configuration as specified in the manual, which runs through the order, and I'll just bring that order up there. And that will bring the recommended install order here for the configuration. So the recommended order, the first thing you need to do is to create an administrator and a user login. The reason for this is that if you don't create an admin and a user login first, and you then later on create a user login, you will no longer have an admin login. So always create your admin user first. So this is a fairly straightforward process. You simply go to Configuration, Logins, Add/Edit Login Roles, and then choose Add. Add in a username, a password. So you confirm the password, and then choose Administrator as that first user. You should then add a user account. Again, these can be named whatever you want. and we'll save that as a standard user. Now, standard users are important. Don't set everybody as administrators, because you can actually set different permissions in terms of restrictions around DDIs and extensions, and standard users, the rules apply to them, but they don't to administrators, so that's an important one. So always make sure that your users are in as a standard user. Okay, once that configuration of login roles is complete, we're going to have a quick look now at sites. So under the sites option, and if I look at sites here, first thing to do is add in a site. I've got a couple there. I've got head office and undefined. So you'd add in the site name. So let's call it Capstan, and we'll give it just a code there. It has no real bearing to the IPEX or really any of the reports you run, but it's a good housekeeping thing to have different site codes if you start to build up multi-site reporting. iBOSS will automatically know and log any trunks when they're first seen. So if you're installing iBOSS at the same time as you're installing the IPEX, and you start to make some test calls over the trunks, then the configuration screen of the trunks will automatically put those trunk numbers in that you've used. So that does speed up the configuration somewhat if you're making some test calls when you're installing the IPEX along with iBOSS. And again, we can add in trunk numbers, a description of that, and trunk grouping. So if you want to have some groupings around your trunks, you may have ISDN or main lines, private, SIP. However your customer wants to configure their trunk groups, you can add in different trunk groups here. So trunk group 3, ISDN. So there's a new trunk group there, and then when we go back to look at the trunks, we can very easily assign that trunk to a different trunk group. So you can see there it's assigned it to an ISDN, if I could type it correctly, in the trunk group there. So we've now configured the site, the login, and the trunks and the trunk groups. We're now going to move over and look at DDIs. So two options here. DDI groups allow you to have a group with multiple DDIs being a member of it. So in this instance, we may look at a help desk as a group. And then under help desk you may have 3 DDIs which relate to different products. Again, this has no bearing and doesn't change any of the settings in the IPEX. It just neatens up the way you can run reporting when I move on to the reporting suite in a minute. So as part of the DDI groups, it's simply a name. And then when you come on to configuring your DDIs, so you choose add, you type in the DDI number. So for instance, in our office I'm on 715. DDI name would be Mike's DDI, and I then would put that as a let's call it a help desk DDI group. They're also known as campaigns. So what you may have is, as part of your reporting, a DDI group could be a marketing campaign, and under that you may have DDIs for different areas of the country. So the DDI groupings are quite nice and allow you to really choose and configure how you're going to be running any reports on a kind of an inbound salesy type reporting. Okay, so once the DDIs and the DDI groups are complete, we're now going to move on to ACD groups. And again, we've got an option for supergroups. And supergroups are, in effect, similar to DDI groups, except these are queue groups. So a supergroup, for instance, for the office, if I then close that and I have a look at ACD groups, you can then assign different ACD groups to different supergroups. So you can have multiple queue groups within a single supergroup. So again, you can report on, okay, I've got a supergroup of help desk and I've got 3 ACD queues under that. So if I want to run a report on a supergroup of help desk, I'm going to get aggregated stats for the all of the ACD queue groups below that supergroup. ACD group numbers are important. In the IPEX ACD groups, if you start at 620 as group 0, and then you count up. So if you're looking at an ACD group with a group code of 623, then that's going to be number 4 of your ACD group. Again, you can talk to support, and they will give you a pointer on where what number that group should be, but it counts logically up from 620. So I'm now going to move on from the ACD configuration, or I'll just give you an example of how you configure that. So it's a drop down for the group, and you can just type in the name and the group there. So I'm going to move on from the ACD group options to some of the more basic stuff, and now we're going to start looking at departments, divisions, and cost centres. These are discrete options, mainly to link in the reporting engine for how the organisation that's going to be using iBOSS is structured. So for the divisions, here we've got a few, so HR, Help Desk, Finance, Networks. We can also look at departments, so I've got like first line, second line, so these may be departments under a division. Cost centres, again, more for financial purposes. You can add cost centres to specific extensions. So all of these relate to an extension and an extension's membership of certain divisions, departments, or cost centres. So they're really a way of tailoring the reporting for an extension to allow you, when you come to do a report on, for instance, a department of infrastructure support, then it will report automatically on the extensions that are a member of that department without you having to go in and manually configure that. So now we come to extensions, and hopefully when I choose Add Extension, it will become clear why you need to run through the configuration options in that order. It's mainly because I can now very easily go in here and type in an extension number who is associated with that number. You can enter their email in here, so if they log in to run reports, they don't need to type their email in, it's pre-configured. And then it's very easy just to go down and choose what division, department, cost centre, and site they're in. So if we jump straight into the extension configuration before doing these other parts, then we'd be constantly jumping between screens, which isn't an effective and efficient way of installation, which is why we recommend to do it in this order. An important thing to note here, we've got start time and daily availability. So start time is what time that extension should be available to take calls in the morning, and availability is the average time that an extension should be available to receive ACD calls. So these two parameters are really only important when we look at the Business Manager edition and when we're starting to do some intelligent reporting on ACD groups. So now we've got an extension configured. You just choose Add to add that to the list, and as you can see here, we've got a number of extensions that are configured for us in the example edition, the demo edition, and that really completes the configuration of extensions. Now we come into some of the optional installation steps, and again these are listed in the installation guide. So if we look at where we're at so far, we've run through the iPEX system programming. We've then installed iBOSS on the server. We've done the update check. We've installed SQL. Once SQL's installed, we've run through and installed the iBOSS application files. We've then restarted and run the wizard where we put in the IP address, and then we've restarted the machine. We've registered the customer for iBOSS, and the registration is all done online, so I showed you the online screens to do that. We've then run through the configuration, and we're at the stage where we've added extensions. So this is one of the last Mandatory options. The green items here are mandatory. The orange are optional, but highly recommended. So we're at the stage now where almost the last mandatory setting is complete. We've got some optionals and some and one last system setting just to check the email settings. So as you can see, the installation guide really runs through everything that I've discussed here in terms of trunk configuration, DDIs, supergroups, etc. So we're now at the stage where we can do some optional ones. So we've got a customers directory. In terms of customer directory, at the moment we've only got the ability to add customers individually to the customer database. We are looking to bring in a CSV or an Excel format, and we're hoping to have that released in the next month or so, which will allow you to pull in a list of your customers. So when you run reports, you'll actually have the customer or company name next to the number, and this is all part of the evolution of where iBOSS is going to be going over the next 12 months when we start to do things like call control, screen popping, and that sort of thing, which is in the schedule, and I'll cover that off later in the session today. So if we want, we can put some contact names in here. So I'll do John, contact number of a telephone number, job title of owner, and a company name. You can then add in a new company name, so this might be Denver Cars, for instance. So then that will be available in the drop down there, and then we can add that. So we've then got a new company name in our database, and you may want to load in a few of the frequently called numbers on there, but you don't need to. This is really here for when we start to do more intelligent things around screen popping and CTI. The next stage is looking at restrictions. This really comes in where we created our standard user account. So we can now look in some restrictions. And the first one we're going to look at is restricted DDIs. So restricted DDIs means that I can add a user. If I look at a DDI of 715, then this DDI as a restriction, we can go in here to add assign DDIs to login roles, and we can say, okay, so the user currently does not have access to report on the DDI of 715. If you want this user to have the access to report on 715, you add it in the assigned group. So the DDI and the restrictions around DDIs allow you to restrict the ability for certain users to report on certain DDIs. We've also got a similar option for extensions. So if I look at user, which is the user we created, not the admin user, we can then say that this user can only report on specific extensions. And these may be team members that work with or for this user, or this user maybe shouldn't be able to report on these people because they're superior to this user. So you can add some specific permissions around what users can see and report on using the restriction options there. You can of course add as many login roles as you want for multiple users. We actually recommend that every user that's going to be running reports has a separate logon, and also if you're going to create wallboards that go up on the wall, that they have specific logins for the wallboard as well, and I'll come on to why later in the session. Final couple of bits now. We've got some system settings. Again, this is where you can change the email server and test that. We've also got the option of default target response time. And the default target response time comes into play when we're doing things like reporting on how efficient our call answer times are. So when we start to look at some statistics and some reports around answer times and whether we're hitting SLAs, what our KPIs are, the default target response time is in how many seconds
should our business be answering the phone by. And that number is important because it actually runs through a lot of the metrics for the rest of the reports. Okay, if I close that down. Alarm settings, we would have configured these at the point of install. If you happen to forget to do that at install, you can configure the alarm settings here. And while I'm here, we've also got some options for call recording. So if you're running call recording, we've got some archival options where you can archive off to a different server. We've got some backup options, again, where you can back up call recordings to a device. We've also got call recording restore capabilities. So again, you can restore your previously backed up call recordings, or you've got an option to delete call recordings as well. So all of these screens are only available to admin users, which is why we don't recommend that standard users have admin access to the system. So we've now run through all of the configuration options to get extensions in the system. I didn't mention earlier that iBOSS will actually add extensions in here as it sees them. So again, if you're installing iBOSS as part of a fresh install for an IPEX customer, then we recommend that you install iBOSS fairly early on in your testing and deployment, because as you go around and add and test new extensions, they will automatically appear in this list, making your job slightly easier when it comes to finally configuring iBOSS in terms of its software. So we've run through the recommended install order, we've looked at the Phone Monitor application, and we're now going to move on to Phone Manager. So the Phone Manager application will be fairly familiar to many of you, because in effect what we've done is we've wrapped the existing IPEX station management application, which is accessed via going to the IPEX logon screen, and we've wrapped that in a custom window. So it allows you to give your users access to the station programming web pages of the IPEX in an easy format. So when they click on the icon on the dock, or they click from the taskbar, it will open up a window where they can store their username and password if they want, click log on, it will remember that password for future sessions if you want, and take them quickly to their existing phone configuration screens that's built into the IPEX. But by doing it this way, they don't have to remember IP addresses, they don't have to remember to use Internet Explorer to do it. It's just a much slicker way of accessing a feature that is already baked into the IPEX call servers. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the Phone Manager today. In fact, that's all I'm going to cover on it. If you want more in-depth information on that, visit the iBOSS website, because there's demonstrations of what you can do and what you can configure with the Phone Manager. And we've got quite a lot to get through in terms of reporting and real-time displays in the next 45 minutes or so. So I'm now going to move on to call management and what sort of call management features iBOSS delivers. It comes with a comprehensive call logging and reporting mechanism and database. It's got more than 25 professional reports built in that we're continually adding to. They're fairly clear and fairly concise, and you can also view them as tables and charts of information, and you can also export that data if you're using the Executive or Business Manager edition to CSV, Excel and web pages. We've got a powerful filter engine in there, so you can slice and dice your data however you want to see it to generate custom reports. You can schedule reports, so once you've created a report, you can schedule that report to come out to you on a scheduled daily, weekly or monthly basis. And we've also got graphical analysis around what the call data is. So in terms of reports, I'm going to run through some live examples. I won't cover off all of the reports, but I'll give you a flavour of some of the reports that are available. And how you can create personal report templates and also schedule reports as well. So now I'm going to move back over to the call management application and choose the reports catalog option down here on the left-hand side of the ribbon, and the reports catalog gives you a tree view of available reports. Now I'm going to expand all of these, and as you can see, there's a wide or a large number of reports covering a number of different topics. So they're grouped logically. So I'm going to start by looking at some of the time interval reports. And if I look at, for instance, a daily interval report, this will give me, by date, some information around how many calls, were they inbound, outbound, how many have I missed, what the costings of that call is according to BT's standard tariff, average talk time, average incoming talk time, and average outgoing talk time. And I also get a summary dashboard display at the top here as well. Now, if I start to filter that information, I am actually going to look at it for this week. So if I choose this week as a parameter and refresh that, I've now got 4 days worth of information, and I can view that as separate days, and I can also then go to the chart tab here and look at it by day, how many calls in, out, missed, and in total. And again, that's a graphic output. And then we can, if we want, go back into the filters and say, okay, I only want to look at a selection of extensions, or I only want to look at specific queues or supergroups. So if I only want to look at the help desk group, then I'll choose queues, restrict it just to the help desk, refresh that report, and I will get the information only based upon that group. In terms of other filters, we can also look at the kind of nominal groupings that are in the software in terms of division, department, cost centers, and sites. Can also look at specific campaigns. So if you remember, these are DDI groups or campaigns. So look at the networks or help desk, or I can restrict it based on just specific DDIs. So we've got full DDI filtering available on there as well. We can also filter by call type. So this will look kind of, if I only wanted to look at incoming calls or only unanswered calls, I could then refresh that. And let me just check that I've got all the information. So if I only look at a call type of unanswered, I'll refresh that, and it will give me the information about calls that fit the parameters here. So if I only look at incoming unanswered, then I will only get incoming calls that were missed. And then I can say, okay, I missed a lot of calls on the 19th and the 22nd. Why was that? I've got a question come in. Can you email reports to multiple addresses? Yes, you can. So I'll show you the ability for the email and scheduling now. So if I just go back and reset all of our parameters, refresh that, get the information. Save options up here. If I choose save, I get a dialog that allows me to choose the output type. So I've got PDF, Excel, web page, text file, or CSV. If I was to choose something like a PDF document, I'll save that to my desktop. I've now got on my desktop a PDF with the information that was in that report, and I've also got the charts as part of that document as well. So I could very easily pass this over or archive this or email it as a PDF by exporting, choosing save and then doing it. I've also got the option up here for email, and if I choose email, I can send to multiple addresses. You simply separate them with a comma, choose a subject and a message for that email, choose it as a type, so as a PDF in this case, and I can schedule that. So I can either send it now, I can send it daily at a specific time, I can send it weekly or monthly. And if I choose, for instance, weekly, I can choose which day of the week that goes out. So in essence, once I've set up some custom reports, so I could go in here and okay, I'm the manager of the help desk group. I can create a report that gives me information only on help desk. I can then schedule an email to go, okay, every week on a Sunday, email me this report as a PDF. So I may never actually need to go back into the iBOSS software to run reports, because I can set up the reports that I want to see on a regular basis, and they'll be emailed to me automatically. Okay, so they're the email options and the save options for reports. I'm going to run through some of the other reports now. So that was the daily interval. We can also look at half-hourly interval. So again, under filter options, this is looking at today. So I'm now getting every half an hour what has happened in the business. And the charts on this are quite nice because it allows you to see when your peaks and troughs are in terms of calls and when your highest missed call volume is. So you could tweak when users go to lunch and that sort of thing from this. And you can also use the filters here to say filter down on specific DDIs. So if I wanted to look at the help desk DDI, so I'll refresh that. So between 9 and 9:30 here, we missed a call. Why did we miss a call? Or we could go in and have a look at a different campaign, so say networks, and again, we'll see when we were missing calls, when our traffic was at a peak, and it'll allow us to possibly change our business operations because of the information we're getting from the report. You get the idea of the time interval. We can do it half-hourly. This one's hourly. We can also do it monthly. So if I was to put a filter in for a date range of a year, it may not like that because I've only had it installed on this system since March, but you get the idea that you could look historically over what your call volumes have done over a period. Okay, so the next set of reports are extension reports. We can now report on cost codes, departments, divisions. So these are the nominal groups that we set up earlier. And again, these have chart options. So if I look at department, it's probably a slightly better one, and I filter that for this month. We can then see a chart of, okay, so most outbound calls were made by first line support or payroll. Missed calls, first line support were highest. So we can start to use this information again to get a bit of a better insight into what's going on with the call volumes and how people are answering. Some nice ones here. Extension detailed reports. This is a blow-by-blow account by extension for a period. So usual uses for this is, okay, I want to look in and look at a specific extension. I'll look at Harry and what has Harry been doing today. So Harry's a member of the first line support group. He's made mainly outbound calls, and this is a call-by-call, complete itemized list of that extension. But we can also look at some summary information. So if I look at a summary report, this will give me, for the period we've chosen in the filters, some information such as how many calls, average talk time, both inbound and outbound, how many calls they've made, how many they've missed, and again, by filtering this over a month, we can see who's missing the most calls. So here, extension 0 is missing calls, and extension 0 is a very important extension within iBOSS. Extension 0 catches any call that is either unanswered by an extension and fails over to another destination. So for instance, if somebody had their phone forwarded to voicemail, then a call that came into that extension, that came into the system that was forwarded to voicemail would be reported against extension 0. If somebody hangs up when they're in an auto attendant, that is also reported as extension 0. So extension 0 is a special extension number in iBOSS because it catches calls that can't be allocated to any other extension number. So rather than ignoring them and not reporting on them, we report against them as extension 0. And as you can see here, this will again give us a flavour according to our filters. So we could look at date ranges or last month, and those filters will apply to the report. So the extension summary is a nice one, and is probably one of the most frequently used reports because it gives you a very clear view of what's going on. Got some other reports here within the extension reports. So a group detailed will look at it under specific groups. So if we look at a group detailed, we could then choose a specific division, and again it will give us an itemized view of that division or group. So this is more of a kind of a nominal department division type grouping. The final report in the extension reports is actually a report that was developed from a customer request using the help us section of the website, and this was an unanswered calls report. So this will give you an itemized list of calls that were unanswered, and the ring time and the number that phoned. So a useful report if you want to have a clear view of unanswered calls. Okay, so moving on to the next reports. Trunk summary. This is a fairly simple one, really. It just reports on trunk usage. It's useful one if you're going in to do a review of how many lines the customer's got and whether they need more or less, because you can go over a period and actually see what their overall line usage was, and this gives you a proper view and some intelligence around decisions around how many lines the customer's got. In terms of customer reports, this will feed in to the customer directory that you created by line. So this one's looking at inbound numbers effectively, and some information around that. So this is going to become a lot more important when we start to look at CTI integration, and we can look at volume of calls. So here 36 calls came from a single number, and we can highlight regular callers that might be either problem cases. So we can do a little bit of analysis around numbers and customers, but this section is going to have more meaning and more improvements when we start doing some CTI and proper customer directory work. Okay, so now come into some incoming call analysis. So this is looking at DDIs, caller tolerance, and some of those sorts of things. So in terms of caller tolerance, this is how long a caller will wait on a line before hanging up, and it will give you the time at which most callers are hanging up, and you might use this sort of information to change when messages are played in your on-hold marketing. In terms of DDIs, we've got full DDI reporting. So this is a DDI detailed, so again a blow-by-blow account. So you might use that for some in-depth reporting. More likely you're going to look at the summary information, and this will give you by DDI what the kind of averages are, what your grade of service is, how many have been missed, how many have been answered, what your average wait times are, your average time to answers. So the DDI summary report is a really nice report if you're using inbound DDIs to move calls around. In terms of performance, performance will give you things like longest ring time. So for these calls, what was your longest ring time? What was the group it was a member of? But again, this is a detailed report, so this is drilling down, and you'd use the filters here to maybe look at just specific extensions. So if I look at a specific extension, so if I choose Fred, then I can look at all of Fred's calls based upon the inbound DDI. So you can start to use the detailed reports to really fine-tune the information you're looking at. But again, more likely, you're going to look at the summary information, which will give you by day what your kind of metrics are in terms of grades of service, in terms of how many you've answered, how many have been missed, how many have been lost, and again you can chart this out. So if we look at it over a period of a month, we'll get some by day statistics, and we can chart this. So we can look at what our overall grade of service does over a period. So again, this is about improving how calls are handled through the IPEX, and really fine-tuning the business and the business processes, and giving you the information to be able to do that. Before I move on to some of the enhanced reports, I'm now going to move over to the dashboard functionality, and some of the real-time displays, and how you can configure your dashboard displays. So I'm now just going to move on to an overview. So iBOSS has within it some real-time data displays, and a blank canvas that allows you to show real-time information or historic information, or a mix of the two, on a canvas, and create your own business intelligence views. They've got a number of different widgets that will show different information, and you can also create your own widgets that use specific report outputs and your own report information to display that in a real-time view on the dashboard. This is available in the Executive and Business Manager editions, and really is a flexible way of displaying information. And we've also included in this some wallboard tiled type views that allow you to have some alarming capabilities in terms of flashing the background and the text colours, and actually emailing out notifications when thresholds are reached. So I'm now going to show you in the demo system what the dashboard is all about. So over on the left here, I've chosen the second option down under dashboard, and what the dashboard gives you is a set of standard widgets that are included in the Executive and the Business Manager edition, and some enhanced widgets. Sorry, the standard are available in the Executive and the Business Manager, and the enhanced are only available in the Business Manager edition. And the light and the standard editions come with some preset widgets, and I'm now going to open up those preset widgets to show you what they are. So the 5 preset ones included in the light edition is a web browser widget, so you could use things like Salesforce or BBC iPlayer or whatever sort of website that you may want to display on the dashboard there. We include average ring time monitors, average talk time monitors, and the phone monitor application as a widget as well. So these are your 5 standard widgets that are available in the light edition, and are also available in the higher editions as well. The most useful of these is the business summary widget, which gives you this tiled display of information. I'm just going to very quickly reset some of these settings and just disable these alarms and thresholds. Okay, and then reset the colours here as well, just to give you an idea of how you can configure and build your own dashboard. So I'm just resetting these back to black and white, and you may see here all I'm doing to change these details is right-clicking on the tile I want to work on, set colour, set background colour, and then choosing a colour for the background of the tile. I can then also set the font colour, so I'll set that to white, and you can configure the colours of the tiles here, and you can also click on the title of the tile and overtype. So this is calls today, so you can change what these these say here, obviously keep it relevant to the statistic it's showing. We can also on the tiles add thresholds and alarms. So if we now look at alarms, we've got some different settings for alarms. So we've got alarm at or over a threshold value or below, so above or below. So you may want to set it to alarm over a specific threshold, and we're looking at calls today. So say we want to have the font flash when we reach, let's have a look at this, 200 calls during the week, and critical alarm when we go to 205, and then we can choose different colours for our critical alarm. So I'm going to choose black and orange here. I can also set an email to be triggered when an email to be sent when an alarm is triggered. So what I can do here is, if a critical alarm is triggered, then I'm going to email me that threshold has been reached. So it's useful for things like missed calls. It's useful for alerting you to situations within groups if you've got X number of calls waiting. Somebody just asked, how often will the alarm send an email to you? It will send an email every time that threshold is crossed. So for instance, if you've got an alarm on calls in queue and you've set a threshold for 10 calls in queue, every time it goes above 10, it will send you an alarm. So if it goes from 0 calls to 11, it will send you an email. If it drops from 11 till 8, it won't. But then if it goes from 8 to 11 again, it will send you another email to say that threshold has been breached. So it's an easy way for you as a manager to control and view what's going on. Somebody's asked, what happens if you have an alarm which calls below 50? Will it keep sending emails till 50 is reached? It's a very good question, and I shall look into that. I haven't been asked that before. I believe if you set a critical threshold for a value that is below a threshold, I don't think it sends you an email. I think the emails are only triggered for alarms over a threshold, but I will check on that, Alex, and get back to you on that one. So in terms of widgets, I'll move that one back up there. I've created a very simple dashboard display here. I can now right-click and lock it, and all of the kind of X's and minimize and maximize disappear, and actually lock this dashboard, so I can no longer move things around. And I can also get rid of the sidebar there and have a larger view. So if I then unlock the dash, I could make this to go slightly larger. I'll make those two the same size. Let's say I then want to put the phone monitor down at the bottom there. So I'll put that down there, and then I'll make average ring time a bit bigger and put the web browser over on the left there, and then I'll lock that dash, and it will get rid of all the additional information. So as a basic view, that's kind of how configurable it is and easy it is to move tiles around and change the size and the format of them. If I now remove those widgets, I'll run through the other standard widgets that are included in iBOSS. So we've also, so this is now looking at the executive editions widgets. We now start to get things like speedos. So speedos, again, resizable, but they will always keep their shape. And these are nice for showing real-time information that changes on a scale between 0 to 100. So things like ring time, things like grade of service. So we've got another monitor here that's a speedo that is monitoring the overall grade of service of the organisation. And again, this will move through different sections in real time as these statistics change. We can also look at things like caller tolerance. So again, this is taking out the information of when people are hanging up, and here they're hanging up at 16 seconds. So this will update in real time if we've got an inbound, lots of inbound calls that are hanging up at different points. This will update in near real time. We've also got the option, if you're using ACD, to have a look at the number of calls in a queue. So this is a thermometer type view that will go up and down according to the number of calls that are in a queue at any one time. The next one I'll show you is the DDI grid, a nice little display for if you have multiple inbound DDIs being used to route calls, because this will give you a tabular view of what's been going on those inbound DDIs. So talk time, answer times, a good display to have if you're operating some sort of inbound contact center. If you're also running an ACD group, we can have full ACD group information. So group names, how long the longest queue time is currently, what the average queue time is, how many calls are waiting, and again you've got parameters where you can set alarms and trigger different colors. So all of these is, and again you can change the name as well. So this could be, you could change this to group 4 finance, or you could change total calls to whatever you want. Now Alex asked a question, can you have a different view of the calls in queue widget, i.e. just a number? Yes, you can. As you can see here, we've got a calls waiting tile as part of the group wallboard, so it can just be just a number as part of that group wallboard. Okay, so if I then move that up a little bit to there. We also can look at things like hourly calls distribution. So hourly calls distribution, unsurprisingly, is looking at what time of the day calls have come into the business, and again this will update throughout the day to include other columns as time progresses. PCA monitor is another speedo, so this percentage calls answered within the threshold. So this is again going back to your configuration screen of your target time, and these are some industry standard metrics. Really nice one for inbound contact centers here. We've got a top agent view, so top agent by duration and top agent by calls. So this is bringing in that picture that we included and I updated at the start of the presentation, where we added a picture, and this rotates between top agent by calls and duration. Currently it's set to rotate automatically between the two, but if you'd like to look at things such as Alex has recommended of just by calls, then certainly we'll add that to the wish list and we'll get that built. Should actually be a fairly quick one because we've already built the widget that does more than you're asking for, so I'll look at getting that added to the development roadmap. Okay, so they're the standard included widgets, and I'll close those off and just have a look at the two widgets that are included as standard out of the box with the Business Manager edition. We now bring in some contact center stuff, so we can look at agent names and some stats around the different agents. So this is specifically really looking at contact center and doing it by agent, and talk time inbound and outbound. We've also got a unique view which doesn't look particularly great over webinar, but on screen it's really quite neat. This is a contact center layout. It's a helicopter view of a business. So here you can drag in different partitions, so you can create your own custom layouts. Very easy drag and drop interface for adding in walls, and then you can add desks. If I add in a desk, you just tell it what extension number's sitting there. You can rotate that desk, create your own little groups. So I've created a little group up here, and these will update the colors in real time according to what that agent is doing. So as a contact center manager, I might have rows and rows of agents, and I would be able to see if they're green, they're not doing anything; if they're red, they're on a call or they're busy; if they're grey, they're D&D'd. I can see their name and their extension number. I can also right-click and show details, and show details will bring up the little snapshot view of what they've been up to today. So I can look at a single screen, see what all my agents are doing in real time, and very quickly run some top-level reports and snapshot views about what those people have been up to today. So that's the contact center layout. And again, if you wanted to, you could overlay on this view some of the widgets. So if next to this group here, I wanted to have a little PCA monitor, I could then lock the dashboard and have a PCA monitor appearing next to that group. So you can build some widgets around the layout that you build to create a flexible view of the customer's business. Just unlock that, and I'm now going to show you why iBOSS is pretty unique and is user friendly. All of the reports that we've run, and I'm now going to go back to some of the reports that we've run previously, so I'm going to look at extension summary. This was a report based upon users with some talk time, with some average incoming statistics. And what I'm going to do now from this view is I'm going to create a widget. So just choose Create Widget up here. I'm going to name that widget, so Webinar 2, so Extension Summary Webinar 2. I can then choose from the summary information, i.e. calls in, calls out, missed, total calls. I could create a wallboard based on that information for all of my extensions, or I can choose detailed view in a table and see the username and the statistics around that, or I can look at some charts. So I could look at total call charts, for instance. And when this starts to become really neat is when we go in and add a filter. So if we add a filter to a specific group, let's do it as a campaign. So we'll choose a campaign of help desk as an inbound DDI. We'll refresh that report, and we can see we've got 5 users in there, and we've got some information. I'm going to filter it we'll do it for today, but I'll actually choose the networks group to get a bit more information there. If I now go create widget, so extension summary for networks, and I'm going to do some summary information and a wallboard. I'm going to create that widget. It now gives me a message that the widget was successfully created. Now when I go back to my dashboard, I can go to custom widgets, and I've now got a somewhere here, networks, there we go. So Webinar 2, extension summary for networks, and this has created me a tiled view for the networks group, and it brings out the real-time information about just that group. So the workflow for creating custom widgets is you simply run a report based upon any of the included report templates. You then customizing it using the filters to just look at the specific information you want. You create a widget, and then you choose the format that you want. So if I wanted that information in a tabular view, so I'm going to choose from details, I'm going to choose the user, how many calls they've made, what their average talk time is, average, let's have a look, average incoming talk time, let's do average outgoing, not talk time, so incoming, outgoing, how many they've missed, and the user, I want to see that in a table, create that widget, it tells me it was successful, back to my dashboard, back to my custom widgets, and then I can go in here and look at my networks for Webinar 2 networks, and now this is going to give me a table view, but it's going to drill down the information for the networks group by user, and then give me the calls, the outgoing talk time, the incoming, and how many they've missed. So I could then create next to where the networks group are working, you can create a wallboard that is specific for that group. So you're not constrained by just having a wallboard that reports on everything or the same wallboard shown on every screen. You can really customize this to how you want to see it. And you can go further than that, because these don't need to be up on LCD displays on the wall. They can be just on a user's desk on a second monitor. As a manager, you can get an at-a-glance view of what's going on. And again, you've got the options to change colours, so changing background colours for missed calls, for instance, and you can set your thresholds and your alarms based upon these tiles. Some of the other pre-built widgets I've built before, things like performance summary for a finance group. So this is giving me from a report that I haven't touched upon yet, and I'll do that now actually. So down on the reports, we looked at the performance summary report. We could have filtered that for a specific group, and if we filter it for a group, we can then create a tiled wallboard displaying as a wallboard the information for that group. So all I did to create this was run a performance summary report, but I chose it for a specific group. So if I look at finance, let's have a quick look. So I did that for a division, I think. So if I look at a specific, okay, so I've got some stats here. I can now create a widget. I can choose from summary all of this information as a wallboard. Performance summary, example 2. Create that widget, then back on my dashboard. So here was the one I created for finance in a previous session. I've now got under here, I've got another widget, performance summary 32. So this could be a tiled wallboard view for a different group. And that's going to be a tiled view showing similar information in a similar format, but drawing the statistics from a different group. And again, you can change the colours. I've set these up to be green, white, and red according to the information. And I could have created this and omitted some of the other information as part of that. So some of the other widgets that I've created previously are things like unanswered calls table. So the unanswered calls table will update in real time and provide a tabular view with the latest call at the top of missed calls. So what number, what extension was it trying to get to? Here it was a call into an auto attendant, and they gave up after 16 seconds. So this again will update in real time. I've also created another widget here looking at unanswered calls. This is displaying it with different parameters selected in terms of the details. So this is a more cut down version where I'm not looking at ring time, I'm not looking at the time of the call, I'm just looking at less of the information, and again that means I can maybe put it in a slightly different area of the wallboard. We can also look at some DDI summary widgets that I've made before. So this is a summary widget based upon a specific DDI. So again, a different tiled view. So it's really flexible going from a report to a widget. So I'm aware that time's moving on. So I've covered any of the reports and the widgets. I'm now going to move on to call recording. I will come back and ask if there's any questions around the widgets and what you can do with those, but I just want to make sure that if anybody's got to go at 4, that we cover off the call recording options in iBOSS. Call recording is a fully integrated option. We offer ISDN 2 and 30, SIP, and analog call recording, and it's fully integrated. So I've got a call recordings option down here on the iBOSS software. And then I've got some playlists, so I'm going to choose all calls. and this brings me up a list of calls made today. Again, I've got similar filter options. I can filter by DDI, extension, time, direction, or whether they're evaluated. To play a call is very simple. You simply click the play icon on the right, and if I was logged in with the right permissions, it would allow me to play that call. So I'm just going to check under I'm just going to remove any of the restrictions that I've got in terms of DDIs here. Okay. I'm just going to sign. Okay, so I've now just given myself permissions again to play those calls, and we get a call player. All the call recordings are encrypted. When you play it, it will decrypt it on the fly. It's PCI compliant. It's AES 256 encryption. We've also got the option to export and save as a WAV file or as an MP3, and that will save it as a decrypted file. From here, we can also double-click and see call details. Now, call details allows you to put call results, customer feedback, and you can add custom results and custom feedback as well. We can flag and tag calls. So, looking here, I'll assign this one a green flag, and I'll say review with agent. And update that. Once we've listened to a call, we can also rate the call. So if we're playing the call, we can have 16 questions that we can click and actually change what the question is, and if it's a yes or no or a 1 to 10 response. And we can rank the agent by each of these questions, and this allows us to build a profile and knowledge of how our agents are handling calls. So based on that, I've just flagged that call, flagged it with a green flag. So I can now if I just wanted to search maybe for green flags that are my calls, I can see that call is there. I could look over a wider period, and there's another green one tagged there from a different day. Very easy. Again, we can email these, so email to multiple people, and it will email an unencrypted MP3 file. An unencrypted WAV file to that user. We can also save a profile. So once we've created a filter list, we can choose Save Profile, and then that will appear within your call recording profile. So if I've created some here, so like a red flags profile that's showing me all the red flagged calls. I've got calls to mobile numbers, so it's looking for 07s. I can look at just extension 136, and that will give me all of extension 136's calls. So you can save the playlists according to how you want them to appear. I'm now going to jump back to the reports catalogue because we've actually got some call recording reports. And we've also got some ACD reports too. So under the enhanced reports that come with call recording and the Business Manager edition, we've got an ACD group summary, which will give us summary information on an ACD group, things like proper max ring times, max wait times, etc. Agent availability, so where we put in our settings for extensions, how long they should be available for, how long this report will look at how long they were available, how long they should have been available, and how long they've been on D&D. We can also look at punctuality reports. So, okay, these users should have started at 8 or 9 o'clock. They actually logged in at 2 o'clock. What's the difference? So we can start to monitor our agents in terms of performance. We can also see a detailed status change. So this is ACD groups again. We can see when they logged in, logged out, D&D'd by user. So we could look at Fred. Okay, so he's logged into finance and the auto attendant group. And what was he doing? He was logging in, logging out. We capture reason codes as well. And status summary will say, okay, again, user, how long they should have been available and how long they were D&D'd for. As part of the user analysis, we can also start to bring in the call recording reports, so we can look at agent evaluation reports and see average scores for the user. So in the call recording screens where we went in to look at a call recording and we actually scored an agent here, we can then go back in and look at what an agent's average score was overall and highlight the agents where we may need to do more training. We can also, under the reports, look at detailed agent evaluations. So we can look at what the question was and the agent, and how many calls we've evaluated for that agent, and what their total and average scores are. We can also look at call evaluation summaries, so looking at the questions, how many calls we've evaluated for that question, what our total and average scores are. So here we may want to look at the lowest. So the lowest, did they try and upsell? They didn't, so okay, lowest score, we need to try and get our agents upselling more. We can also look at call results summaries, so was it a sales call, a complaint, a lead, and also customer feedback as well. So was it an abusive, a satisfied, or an unsatisfied customer? So we've got a really neat integration between call recording, agent evaluation, and reporting. And if you tie all those things together with scheduled reports, the ACD that's built into the iPECS and our call recording, you start to see the power of actually linking all these things together.
Captain Communications.